Okay. So let's talk a little bit just about these arguments that you've gotten into. Let me hear from. Let's limit it to 3 arguments. Who wants to volunteer to talk about their argument? Yes, Sam.
I was arguing with my dad about what isn't an appropriate grade for right now.
Oh, okay.
For me personally.
Okay, good.
And my approach was going by like what the majority is. And I was saying that like I'm not the only one struggling with keeping my grades up this year. So I need to find a way that benefits me, not going to my normal system that I used to use.
Okay.
And I pulled up different statistics from different school districts saying like which ones are all online or half online and not online, and showing different like grade percentages that they're all getting.
Yeah.
And then I was pretty much he said that because I'm not all online, then I shouldn't have an excuse to have failing grades. But then I said that, well, I don't think my failing grades is really what your issue is. And he said, you're right. My issue is you're missing assignments. And I said, but I have missing assignments on purpose. And he didn't like that answer, so I tried to explain it by saying, I choose not to do some assignments because that's what helps keep my grade up. I choose to do the assignments that are time-consuming to get me a lot of points rather than the little ones that get me.
Right, that reminded me that I need to look at your grade.
Because in his mind, grades shouldn't be counted on the work that is presented rather than the work we're trying to give.
Wait, I don't understand that.
He thinks that your grade should be based off of how many missing assignments you have. Because if you have missing assignments, it means you're not trying.
So it's more of an effort.
Yeah, well, in my dad's defense, I have like a 2.2 and like 30 missing assignments.
Right. Okay, so in the end, though, did you feel like your dad won?
No.
Because he's the dad, or?
So my dad and I both have a tendency to, when we feel like we're starting to lose an argument, we go quiet. And I know that about him, and he started to go quiet, so I took that as a victory.
Got it. Okay. Okay, good.
We go quiet so we don't say something.
So as soon as it sort of delves into or devolves into what's called ad hominem attacks, which means attacking the person rather than the subject, then you're going to go quiet, right? And since he was the first one to go quiet, you felt like you kind of had the upper hand on that one. Well, it sounds like one of the reasons you might have had the upper hand was because of your use of statistics and comparisons, right? When we were talking about claim types, we talked about one claim type being resemblance arguments, and Sam was using a resemblance claim to say, look, our school resembles this other school, and these other kids are also getting failed grades, so this might be why, you know, we're all struggling right now, right? So I think that was an effective way to do it, it sounds like. Yeah? Okay, cool. Let's hear another argument. Yeah, Cooper.
So an argument I recently had was who would be better live action Spider-Man portrayal?
Okay, Tobey Maguire, go on.
What? Okay, we can, I want to argue this right now.
Yeah, just tell me, who are you arguing with?
Andrew.
Okay.
What? He was the best Spider-Man. The second movie was garbage and Sony screwed him over. He was the best Spider-Man.
Tom Holland.
Yes, Tom Holland is in the mix. Tom Holland is a perfect Spider-Man, but his adaptation to the screen is for the MCU. He's not staying true to Spider-Man.
Okay, so tell me how you made the arguments then.
That was the argument.
So who were you arguing with? You're arguing with Lily, okay. And your argument was that certain Spider-Man depictions of Spider-Man are appropriate for certain contexts, or?
Your argument is that Howell follows certain comments. Yeah, exactly. That's a horrible argument.
Hang on, let me group this back. So, Cooper, you're arguing that the Tom Holland Spider-Man is not as good because it was built for like the Avengers movies,
yes.
And so it feels like his other movies are sort of like tacked on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're saying Andrew Garfield is the better Spider-Man, why?
He fits the portrayal better. They took what was the source material and they effectively edited it. And besides, the visual effects look so much more clean in the Amazing Spider-Man series.
Okay, so what you've got here is an evaluation claim, right? Where we're obviously going on a preference that is very controversial because it's clearly Tobey Maguire.
No, it's not.
And
That's the pizza time guy.
always my Spider-Man.
Have you ever seen Tobey Maguire cry?
A work of art.
That's not Spider-Man.
Okay, so you're making this evaluation claim, right? Any claim that's about what's the best, what's the better, is an evaluation claim. And I think like you can hear that there's some subjectivity in this claim, isn't there? Like it's why we might get into the argument because, and same with Sam's. So Sam's was about the assumptions being different. The assumptions of what grades should be dependent on are different, right? In this case, it seems like it's not the assumptions that are the problem, it's the subjectivity of the argument. So you're going to have to find a way to find like more objective evidence to prove the thing, right? You have to set up your categories perfectly so that everyone will say, of course, it makes perfect sense now why Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man, even though it does seem like a preference thing, like it's often just who's cuter, you know. Tobey Maguire. I mean, the other two are children, so I gotta go with Tobey Maguire.
Andrew is still in the
All right, wait, is it gonna be about Spider-Man?
Well, it's about the argument, not about Spider-Man.
Okay, tell me.
Okay. So with that, wouldn't you not want to be objective though? Wouldn't you want to be extremely specific? Because like what Cooper said made me branch off into like there's multiple different universes of comics, and I branched off into those. So wouldn't you want to be super specific?
You're gonna want to be really specific, and we'll go through each claim type.
So that way they can't nudge out of the argument.
Yes, you're gonna have to be really specific about the qualifications that something needs to be the best. So you have to say a good Spider-Man has to be true to the comics. A good Spider-Man has to be good looking. A good Spider-Man has to have these look great when he cries or whatever. He's gotta have these qualities so that if your audience believes that those are the things that a good Spider-Man needs to have, then they can't back out of that argument. Okay, let's get one more. Tate, sorry.
I had an argument with my mom.
Okay.
On the new Xbox.
Okay.
So I saw it restocked at GameStop, and I was trying to convince her that she should let me get it because.
Let you buy it or her buy it for you?
Me buy it.
Okay.
I can.
Okay.
And so I argued with her. Like I first I showed her how much it was reselling for, so if I needed to, I could sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she liked that. And then also I told her that I could use it for like with our family and we could bond, but she doesn't really like Xbox, so that really didn't work. But in the end, I ended up winning the argument because I got it.
Awesome. Okay, so was she moved by the resell, like, or?
Yeah.
But she didn't care at all about the family bonding. That's interesting.
She doesn't like
No
Xbox.
games are multiplayer.
Because it's interesting because here you are paying attention to your audience, right? Like maybe I'm not being like too critical, but it seems to me that you might not care that much about the family bonding part.
Well, I think it'd be fun to play like some Minecraft.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So never mind. But like it does feel like you're keeping your mom in mind as an audience, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I would assume about my mom too, that she'd be like, love the family bonding thing. But if she's just like, ugh, no, then I'm gonna have to play, then it kind of backfired on you. But I do love how you're keeping
I don't
that.
think she'd really want to play, but like our siblings.
Yeah, she might be moved by that part, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Here's my point here. There's a couple points. One, there is a difference between an argument and a fight. Did anyone write about a fight?
Oh, whoa!
So there's a difference between an argument versus a fight. I love arguing and I absolutely hate fighting. I will argue every time I see, like, that's like what I like to do when I have social time is have arguments. Like, it's fun for me. I feel like it's like I get something out of that social engagement because I'm learning something, right? Learning something about the other person and learning something about the subject. Fighting, though, I can't stand. Like, I hate confrontation. And people are, like, sometimes people are confused by that when they know me personally. They're like, you're so argumentative, you're so opinionated, why do you break down when anyone like wants to fight you about it, right? When it kind of like starts getting into raised voices or starts getting into name calling or whatever. And it's because of the purpose of the thing. So you want to go into an argument always with at least partially an open mind, right? You've got your opinion, but the whole point of arguing is that potentially you're opening yourself up to changing your mind. Otherwise, why argue, right? The other thing is that you're trying, though, ultimately to persuade. And because you're trying to persuade, you're trying to communicate. A fight is about ending communication. You're just like, I don't want to talk to you anymore, right? By the end of that. An argument is more about facilitating. The other thing is that, and I mentioned this, you're trying to learn while you argue, either about people or about subjects. You're trying to learn about the way people think when you're having an argument with them, or you're just trying to get more information about something that you know they know a lot about. Whereas a fight, again, is trying to shut all that down. You don't want to learn anymore. That's really important to understand because that means that you need to be like, again, open to new points of views when you go into an argument, even if you do feel like your opinion is pretty set in stone. All right, the other thing that it pointed out was the difference between an argument and a pseudo-argument. So most things you can argue about, but when it is completely based on preferences, it becomes kind of a pseudo-argument. So if you were to like argue, for example, tattoos are attractive, that's going to be really hard to create an argument about, right? It's going to be so much based on opinion. All the senses, like all of our subjective senses kind of work that way, like what smells the best, what looks the best, what tastes the best. All of that is really hard to argue. But anything else pretty much is open as long as you can create the categories by which you're determining something. So sometimes I'll have people, and I think we've talked about this in this class, but sometimes I'll have people say, I can't argue about that, that's just an opinion. But that's exactly what an argument is. If you don't have an opinion on the subject, then you're not having an argument, you're just relaying facts, right? Every argument has opinion in it. Yeah, Sam.
So if the argument is on something like sense, so like you could say that tattoos are the most attractive, could you like, to make that about an argument, could you make it like people from this kind of upbringing find tattoos to be attractive?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't know though if there's some kind of study you could do on that and you could ultimately find a survey. I don't know if it would be an argument or just a fact. But yeah, you could, yeah, if you turned it into that. It's as long as it wasn't like you should be most attracted to people with tattoos because attraction is so completely. All right. Okay. The other thing we're pointing out here by thinking about our past arguments is the structure of an argument that will work. All right. How many of you guys have seen this structure? Intro. The end of the intro, you have your thesis. Your thesis goes, here's your claim, plus 3 reasons. And then you have paragraph 1 is reason 1. A lot of times they will tell you that your reason 1, I'm trying to make it's better, that your reason 1 should be your strongest. Then it will have number 2 is reason 2. This is kind of your weakest of the reasons because you're sandwiching it. Weakest. Then you'll have reason 3. This will be your second strongest. Sometimes they'll flip these. And then you'll have a conclusion, which will restate your thesis. Sometimes if your teacher's trying to teach you about counterarguments, they will put it right here, where you stick a counterargument, and then you have the conclusion. Have you seen this format before?
Yeah.
It's, it's called a 5-paragraph essay. Even when they have paragraphs like counterarguments and they make it a 6-paragraph essay, they still usually call it a 5-paragraph essay. This is a terrible essay.
Thank you.
So I never have to do that again.
No, in fact, that's part of the reason like you're in this class is like, let's get rid of that formula of essay. So it does kind of work with rhetorical analysis, which is why I haven't talked about it through like with this class yet. It kind of works with rhetorical analysis. We've been doing it with rhetorical analysis because when you're in a time situation, sometimes it helps to just divide by, strategy and go with that, right? Your argument essays, though, if you were to write this structure of argument essay, you won't get a very good score on your AP test. Here's the reasons. One reason is that this is a list, not an argument. This is 3 separate arguments that you've formed together into a list, and you've said it's true for this reason, and this reason, but you don't have a cohesive argument, right? The other reason is that this has no logical purpose. There's no reason why this is the order that you should put things in for your reader if you're just making a list for them. The other reason is that if you put your counter argument as the last thing right before your conclusion, then basically you have this argument. You're like, Andrew Garfield, best Spider-Man for these reasons, right? And then by the end, you're like, oh, also, some people think Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man. In conclusion, Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man. Like, it makes no sense to leave your audience with the other person's perspective, right?
Conversation with your spastic friends and just switches.
And that's what it feels like often. It also
wasn't the point of a counter argument is to show the other perspective and then completely destroy it.
Yes.
Except
except for not in a fight way, but you're taking it apart. Yeah, completely destroying it is a little bit harsh. But yes. Yeah, so if you put it right here, you don't get any chance to completely destroy it before your conclusion. Maybe. It kind of depends on who your audience is. All of this stuff, so the reason that your teachers have given you this so far, and I don't know if did your 10th grade teachers give you this formula?
No.
I don't remember that contract.
Wait, who was your
No.
I had
I never a single.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, no, I never.
Who was your teacher, Lily? David?
Dean?
Dean, Mackenzie Dean. Oh yeah.
I wrote like next to nothing last year.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything.
Well, this is explaining a whole lot about your skills coming into this class. No, I'm just kidding.
We didn't get any over
I feel like
Yeah, I
think
think we did one on.
I don't
We
remember.
watched
Yeah,
one.
no,
Yeah.
we never wrote it.
I know.
I never watched that last year. I watched a lot of movies.
Okay, let's bring it back then. Okay, so let's say it was your junior high teachers that taught you this format. Okay, come back to this. Okay, I don't want to like destroy all the work that your past teachers have done, basically is what I'm saying. This is a really good way to start off writing essays because it teaches you a few things. It teaches you paragraph structure, that your paragraphs need to be focused around a certain topic, right? It also teaches you that you need to consider the counter argument at some point in an argument. It teaches you the perfect place to put a thesis. I stick with this for us. And it teaches you to have some self-reflection about which points are your strongest points. So it's not bad. It's just, it's in the past now. We're going to grow out of it and we're going to mature in our essay writing. My husband has a story where he took a college writing class and the essay had to be 8 pages. And so he wrote a 5-paragraph essay because that's what he was taught. So each paragraph was like 2 pages long. And he went to the professor and he was like, I did everything that I've always been taught. Like he got a C- on it. C-, I think, which isn't terrible. Exactly. But he went to the professor and he was like, I did everything that I was taught. And the professor was like, yeah, this is you wrote a 5-paragraph essay, didn't you? And he's just like, yeah, that's like what you're supposed to do, right? And the professor was like, whenever have you seen in published writing a 5-paragraph essay format? Have you ever seen that in published writing or like in sophisticated writing? And my husband's like, no, you don't see that style of writing, right? So he had to go, and this is like freshman writing, he had to completely learn how to write essays. And I'm really hoping in this class that we can avoid that you learn it in here so that when you get to college, you're ready to write like more logical pieces. That's sort of my goal here.
I hate writing.
Oh,
I took this class.
but you're gonna get ready for college. Yeah.
I'm
All right.
excited for college.
So if you don't organize it this way, then you have to organize it using your logic. And that's the way that you guys do it when you argue out loud. I can hear you as you're explaining it. Like I heard Tate when he had, the reasons and the way that he was like thinking about his mom as an audience. And I heard Sam when he was talking about the way that he was like organizing it for his dad and how it was more of a back and forth with his audience rather than just here are my reasons, I win the argument. And I heard it in Cooper too when you were like, you actually presented up front like the counter argument, right? Kind of, a little bit. Maybe I heard that from other people, but we presented it up front and you had to respond to that, right? So it was almost like your counter argument was in your introduction. So there is, the hard part about this, there is no set formula for how to write an argument essay. Good argument essays are considering the audience, and they're considering the topic, and they're considering how to organize things logically. So let me show you an example of this. We're going to lead into us prepping for our debates here. So what if my thesis statement was, the American dream is only available to a certain privileged subset of Americans who benefit from the subjugation of minorities. Subjugation. I just stole this from Ta-Nehisi Coates. So I'm taking on his point of view here. I don't necessarily believe this. I don't like telling you what I believe. So the American dream is only available to certain groups of people, right? What's different about this kind of thesis than the 5-paragraph style of thesis?
It doesn't necessarily put different little things that you're gonna add on to it.
Yeah, it doesn't have that 3-pronged thesis. It's just one solid idea. Yeah,
It just tells you what the argument is, and it leaves the entire rest of the thing to tell you how to do that.
yes.
It leaves it so much open, so that if you have to change halfway through, it's not, oh, that wasn't in the thesis statement.
As long as I stick focused to this thesis statement, I can use whatever evidence I want to prove that thesis. I'm not putting the evidence in the thesis. Yeah, Nathan.
It almost seems like just kind of like what it is right there, where it's less of a thesis and what's saying is right, and it's more giving you a prompt to think about. Like, it doesn't seem like it's right off the bat, here's the facts. It more seems like, here's an idea. What do you think,
Yes, although it still does have a clear idea, right? But the what do you think is kind of how I'm going to proceed to kind of say, here's why this idea is correct. So it's a little bit more open-ended than one that will just list your evidence, for sure. The thing is, it still does have a claim in here. I'm still being strong about American dream does not exist for everyone, right? And it still has a reason. I say because of, I didn't spell privilege right, but because a privileged subset of Americans are upholding it on, best minorities, right? So that's Coates' argument again. So if I were to organize this then, there's not an obvious way to organize it the way there is with a 5-paragraph essay, where I divide it by my reasons, because I only have one reason here, really. So then I've got to think about how to organize it logically. The first thing I have to do is explain what the American dream is, so that we're all on the same page, my reader and me. And what I think it is social and financial mobility. The ability to work out of the place you were born into. So that's going to be my first point. My second point is then what achievement looks like under this American dream. Because here I say it is only available, but it is available to someone. So I want to point out what it looks like when it is available. And I want to point out who that someone is, who has benefited. Then I want to point out who has not benefited, because ultimately that is my goal here. And because I've pointed out who has not benefited, I then need to kind of revisit this idea and say what this means about the reality of the dream. And then I'm going to have a conclusion. My conclusion is going to be kind of short, but it's basically, where do we go from here? Because I think that's going to give me kind of this idea of relevance that I can end with a punchy kind of ending. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs, probably. I have a counter argument in here. Where do you think it is? Yeah, Nathan?
I'd say more like in paragraphs 3 and 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially right here is my counter argument, because I'm going to say, yeah, some people do achieve the American dream. It is available for some people, and I'm going to acknowledge that right there. And then I'm spending the rest of my essay trying to take that down, or what did Sam say? Destroy their argument. Yeah, Cooper.
You kind of do that in the first paragraph too by defining the American dream, and you're going to define it in a way that makes it seem that only certain people have it.
Yeah.
So you're setting up your argument so that you can be able to take apart the counter argument.
Absolutely. I'm addressing in that first paragraph, I'm addressing assumptions that I think my audience might have so that we're on the same page. And so that's already kind of addressing that counter argument that they might have that says the American dream is about just happiness or something like that. Yeah. Okay, this is an introduction here to something we're going to be working on for like a couple months. I think that once you have mastered structuring an argument essay, the rest is easy. Thinking of the evidence and writing about the evidence, you've done that for many years now, even in 10th grade, you've been doing that. So you know, and it's been my experience that you guys are really good at that. You're also, it's been my experience, really good at introductions. But the thing that we really need to work on is the structure and breaking it into these small parts. So I've looked at my thesis here, and I've decided what my audience needs to hear and in what order they need to hear it in order to successfully be persuaded. All right, so we're gonna practice this. Yeah, Nathan.
As I say, so when we're taking this and applying it to rhetorical analysis,
Yeah.
isn't the thesis, isn't a good thesis, doesn't it have the evidence in it, and doesn't it have like specifically talking about the tone and about
Yes.
the writer and stuff? So doesn't that not, like, at least the thesis part of this not really apply to rhetorical analysis?
Yes, rhetorical
Okay.
analysis essays, the way that I've been trying to like make it a little bit more logical is saying, hey, talk about something that the author does at the beginning and then that they do in the middle and then that they do at the end to give that kind of structure. It's been my experience. I've tried teaching the logical structure stuff with rhetorical analysis. It's been my experience that that's just like a little bit more advanced than we're ready for. And so that's why I'm doing it in this order. So we're going to stick with doing rhetorical analysis the way you know how, because you guys have gotten pretty good at that. But argument structure, we're going to be more logical about. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to work for the next 15 minutes in your debate groups that I gave you on Canvas. So I'm going to pull these up. I don't know how I'm going to do this with the people online. We're going to figure it out. Pulling up your groups so that everyone knows. All right, so we've got Luke, Anya, and Madison. You guys are all here. We've got Eli, Aiden Fries. Is it Fries? Fries. And Ben. So only Aiden is here today. We'll figure that out. Then we have Christiane, Race, and Sarah. So only Christiane's here today. We'll figure that out. We've got Lily, Tate, and Allie. You guys are all here. We've got Mallory, Tiana, and Emmeline. You guys are all here. Garrett, Sam, and Carson are all here. Nathan, Aiden, Smith, and Cooper are all here. Andrew, Enoch, and Isaac. Andrew isn't here, but Enoch and Isaac are. Okay. What are we going to do with those other two? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have, sorry, I haven't thought through if some of the whole group is not here. Okay, Aiden, I'm going to have you join up with Christiane, and you guys are going to argue for financial success. Okay, and then you guys working online, Eli, Race, and Sarah, you guys are all now a group, and you're going to be working on topic number 1, hard work. This idea of hard work. That's what I want to do. Yeah, I think that's what I got to do. Okay. All right, the rest of you, you know your groups now. Will you go and sit with your group now? I'll take pictures for contact tracing, but go sit with your
For their treat. I don't know how well it is, but I
My assignment.
Which is kind of why. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is.
I wish I got the other one.
I know. That's like,
Okay, okay, now go to the Canvas page that you found the debate preparation form on. Homework, American Dream, debate prep, period 3. And you're gonna, one person in your group just needs to go there, and you're gonna make a copy for your group now. One person in your group is gonna make a copy. So of just the blank form. So you'll have a new blank form that you're working on in your group. Yeah, the prep form. Debate preparation form. So that you'll have a new blank one in your groups. All right, so Eli and Race, will you in the chat box let me know that you can hear me? Eli can, awesome. Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna have you guys work together. Let's have Eli, why don't you make the copy of the debate form and then share it with Race. Okay, so share it with the members of your groups that you are all working now on the same one. So I'm gonna have Eli make the copy and share with Race. All right, now hopefully everyone in your group is coming into the conversation, except for you guys, which I've just paired together, so you'll have to kind of start a little bit. But Christiane did this topic, okay. So everyone's coming into the group with their own arguments that they figured out for their topic, right? What you're gonna do is you're gonna discuss it as a group, and you're going to decide which arguments are the best. Out of all the ones you guys came up with, which ones are the best? And what order should they be presented in? So this is where you're thinking about logical structure of ideas. What's going to make sense to tell your in your opening statements? Which ones are going to make sense to tell first, and then second and third, and so on. So you're going to fill out the new form together as you guys are figuring out what the best order of ideas are. We're just going to work on the opening statements first. So I'm going to give you like 10 minutes or so, maybe 15 minutes to compile your best arguments for your opening statements. Does anyone have any questions about this? I don't know if I explained it very well. Seems like okay. Okay, give it a shot. So you guys at home, you can have two options for this. You could just keep working in the chat box. Or like everyone's in here talking, you guys could just unmute yourselves and talk just like we would in an online class. I would maybe get on your cameras if you're doing that. That might be easier so that you can talk through, because I'm actually going to have you participate in the debate via Zoom. So yeah, it'll be fun. So you guys are now assigned, though. I changed, did I change it up for one of you? Yeah, Race, I moved you from being about financial success to talking about hard work. So you guys here, I'll write it in here just to be clear. And the answer that you have to say is hard work. And the team you're going up against, they are saying fortuitous circumstances.
So, Dr. Borup,
Yeah.
do you just want us to write an opening statement for this?
Yeah, I just want you to fill out that form. So it doesn't have to be a completely worded opening statement. But I want you to fill out that form with the order of ideas that would make sense for your opening statement.
Okay.
And you're here in the back of the room, so people really, they can't hear you that well. Like, you don't need to be shy about talking to each other, I don't think.
Okay, I'm just trying to find the thing you sent me right now.
Okay. It's just called Hard Work Debate Prep Form.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let me know when you find it.
Okay,
I didn't tell you this.
looking.
You have 3 minutes for opening statement. Oh, I thought you meant that. No, to deliver them.
Are you finding it, Race?
No, is it like I'm trying to look in my Google Drive right now?
What's your school email?
It's like jamesray000@my.jordandistrict.
Okay, that's I'm gonna send you a link in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I'm not sure why it's like, I don't know.
Okay, I just sent you a link, so that should work.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so do you have any ideas for our first point?
Okay, so we're arguing for hard work.
Yeah, so we're arguing that hard work means you can achieve the American dream or increase your circumstances.
Okay.
So Race, I kind of went through this last night and I'm not sure if we were supposed to do that, but should I kind of just read you my ideas and then we can kind of work off of that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so for my first point, this isn't in a specific order, which I should probably change, but